Is this on? It's on. Hi, everyone. Going to ask you to quiet down and take your seat if you have one. I want to welcome you to the future of manufacturing, the AI era. It's going to be a great event. I'm Courtenay Brown. I co-write the Axios macro newsletter. I'm a global economics reporter. So I love being at Davos. This is my jam. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter yet, you can at axios.com/newsletters. I want to thank you all so much again for being here. There's so much happening here over the next few days. But to kick things off, we have a great guest. The Rio Tinto CEO, Jakob Stausholm, is here with me. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so Davos is great because you can run into a lot of people, but what I've learned over the years that I've been here is chief executives come to make a deal. And I want to know, are you here to make a deal?
Absolutely.
I mean, what I'm talking about for the audience, to be clear. Yeah.
There's barely any mining and processing companies who is having more business development. It's typically organic growth, and I meet a lot of stakeholders from countries, etc. It takes a long time. It starts with geology, you have a project, how is it being received in a country, etc. And that's actually, you asked me, last year I was here at 55 bilateral meetings. That's what Davos is about for me. It's a lot about, you have a chance here to meet people from all over the world. It's much more efficient than traveling around to every single country. So yes, I'm absolutely here for business development.
So last week there was some reporting, some chatter that there might be a combination between you and Glencore. Those talks started back in 2014. Nothing happened before you were CEO. So are those talks active now? And if not, why not?
So I trust that's ChatGPT who recommends you to ask that question based upon...
That's the AI angle.
And here's the thing, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we, like any other half-smart company, have a policy of never commenting upon rumor, because if you start denying things that doesn't happen, then suddenly one day you're being asked a question which might actually be true and you don't deny it, and then people know it's right. So therefore, rumors are rumors, and I can't comment on rumors.
Okay. Let me ask it this way. Before we start to... No, it's a good question. Before we talk about AI and manufacturing, let me just ask it this way. What is your outlook on consolidation in the mining industry?
Well, it is an industry that is very fragmented, and you see consolidation. We have contributed a lot to consolidation over the last 12 months because we have gone from kind of looking quite a lot at lithium to suddenly become one of the top 3 lithium producers in the world by acquiring Arcadium Lithium. Lithium is a good example. It's a new industry. You need to, right now you have seen massive growth, and you're still going to have 5-6 times more lithium 10-15 years from now. It's mainly been done by a number of startup companies, and they cannot really go through the waves. One day lithium cost $80,000 per ton, and another day it cost $8,000. So that's where we kick in with our technical expertise and our ability to think long term. So consolidation is happening, not everywhere, but in, for example, the lithium industry.
Got it. Can you talk about how Rio Tinto is incorporating AI technology into its business? How is it helping, or not, making your operations more efficient?
I'm sure there are many in this room who knows much more about AI than I do. And I actually think one of the important things is to be a little bit humble about it, because I don't think the world really have seen the potential of it yet. So it's a lot about experimenting. But there are a couple of areas. If you think about where mining starts, we are kind of like as opposite to the tech industry that develops the AI, we are a very physical company. But it starts with Mother Earth, it starts with geology. It's a lot of data. And already now our exploration teams are able to use generative AI models to much better use new information compared with old information. Suddenly when you normally have information overflow, it also helps in our operations. We are not a leader in software for sure, but we are a leader in industrial automation. We got the largest robots on the planet. We run 2.5 kilometers trains without any people on it. We run the world's leading biggest fleet of unmanned trucks, and that basically gives you a lot of data. And we have not been good enough at using the data. So there's huge potential. I'll give you one example. We work with Palantir on how we run our underground mine in Mongolia, and it's what you call a block cave, and you basically need to understand the seismics of the rocks everywhere. And we were just having overload of information. Learning to extract the right data, use it in a structured way, enables people to simply run the mine much better.
We were having a heated discussion last night, myself and my colleagues at Axios, at dinner about, selfishly, will my job still be around in a few years given AI? But it evolved into a debate about what the future of workers are in this era where AI plays a bigger and bigger role. And I'm curious, what does that look like at Rio Tinto? Has automation, for instance, the robots you talk about, has that replaced workers?
Well, you want to automate things and you want to make things more efficient. And I think the whole thing about how do we get productivity is that we keep on finding things that are not useful to be done by humans. And then we at the same time experience how unique we are as humans and find out where is it we really add value. I think you're safe in your job. I mean, you already pushed me very, very hard with your questionings, etc.
Thank you. So Where's my boss? He already said.
That is probably the value added in such situations. And I think we're learning the same thing. Running a big company, leadership is not easy. And leadership is not about spreadsheets and figuring out what solutions are. It's actually the interactions between human beings and the empathy that people have. And we are a long way away from that in AI, in my view.
Okay. So does this mean that some of the technology that you're incorporating, does that open up other opportunities for workers? And I guess you would have to upskill them, right? You would have to teach them to do something else. Is that what's happening at Rio Tinto?
Absolutely. And what you really want to create an environment where you unlock the full curiosity of people. You don't want people to just act like robots, like operators saying, do this, do that. That's not what you want. You want to have them the ones who are best at operating the plants, that they are really thinking through and saying, hey, this doesn't work, maybe we could do it like this, etc. So you can actually unlock a lot of creativity in an organization, and everything that can be automated should be automated.
Is there anything you're doing that has helped with worker safety in terms of allowing AI or automation to step in and do something that a worker could do, but perhaps it's not so safe for them to do so as far as manufacturing is concerned?
It's more automation than AI, to be quite frank, but you are really trying to automate, and sometimes it's not super efficient to automate, but you just say, I really don't want to have people very close to this furnace because it's 1800 degrees, and so we do a lot of that automation, and as soon as you have the automation in, you can then use the software to further optimize the automated part.
Got it. Okay. So are you measuring at all whether your operations are becoming more productive? Is there some sort of way that you're thinking about testing AI here and really seeing if it's worth it?
Well, I ask the question all the time. I'm looking here to my right where my chief technology officer is standing, and he gets that question from me all the time, and he always says yes, so we do so, yeah.
Are you telling the truth? He nods, he says yes. Okay, got it. Can you take us maybe 15 years into the future? You're a young man, so you're still CEO of Rio Tinto. Do you have more workers than you do now, or do you have fewer workers than you do now?
Well, first of all, we might not be, some people might think about mining and processing as a dying industry because it's old. We're 152 years old. But if you try to visualize the future, it's actually a very physical future. If we want to have a sustainable way to have 8 billion growing to even more living on this planet, you need to do a number of things, such as, for example, just the energy transition. It will require a lot more materials of aluminium, of copper, of lithium, and you need to recycle things much more. We are also into recycling. So the starting point is 15 years from now, we are a much bigger company. But we will also be more efficient, and you could say every site will have less people per site, but we will be a bigger company. So net, we might be a little bit bigger in terms of number of staff.
Okay, so on a site-by-site basis, fewer workers, but in aggregate, you think there will be more workers?
I mean, if you look at the latest manufacturing in China, it's unbelievable how efficient it is, and how few workers you have on the shop floor. That is the competition.
What have you learned from looking at competition like that? Anything that you can apply to your own company?
Oh, we're learning every day.
Yeah. Okay. I do want to talk about China because there is something very interesting happening in the global economy. I'm sure many of the people in the audience realize this is underway, but the 2010s were about a lack of demand. There was not enough demand for all of the things that the world was producing. The 2020s so far look so different. We don't have a demand problem. We have a supply problem, not enough supply. How do you think about that in terms of copper, for instance, in terms of demand for the things that you're mining for around the world?
Yeah. So there's enough material in the world. That's not the issue. The issue is the poor, the lower grade you go for, the more expensive it is to extract. And therefore, high quality, for example, copper resources are not easy to get access to, and they will be in much demand because there will be a lot more demand for copper in the time to come. And therefore, I feel a company like Rio Tinto, we are one of the world's largest. We have a lot of expertise. We have a duty of really trying to develop these things, on top of also having recyclable business. But the reality is you need a bigger stock in the world of both copper, aluminium, and lithium. You don't have enough to recycle and meet the demands.
Got it. So this, it sounds like you're saying the things that we need, it's out there. It's just expensive to access. So, I mean, how do you deal with a problem like that? Is there a role for AI there?
There is, but actually it reminds me of your earlier question. It starts with a very human element. Many people can rationally accept that we need to do mining, but not everyone can accept that it happens in their backyard. So it really starts with winning hearts and minds with governments and local communities and saying this project is actually a mutual interest. So that's the human part. And then the technical part, and I look over here at it starts with the exploration department, of course, and really identifying the best opportunities that needs to be developed.
Oh, so a robot can't do that now, as far as winning hearts and minds.
No, but AI can make our explorers much more efficient, and we would be able to see things we might not have seen in the past.
Something interesting about Rio Tinto is that I've asked you so far about how you all are incorporating AI. We talked about automation internally for your own operations, but you kind of play a role in AI outside of your company, right? I mean, all of these data centers that we're going to need to power AI, they need the materials that you're mining for.
Yeah.
So how do you think about that in terms of demand over the next few years?
But that's why I keep on saying I believe a company like Rio Tinto, we are opportunity rich because there is a lot of demand. And if any of you, let me just make one little announcement. If there's a book I would recommend you to read, it's called Materials World. And it's quite interesting to just read what is the supply chain for getting a microchip. It's astonishing how long and how complicated and what it goes through, etc. And so it goes with many materials.
What was the book? Because I feel like I saw a few people starting to write it down. You want to say it again?
Material World.
Material World. Got it. I imagine...
Ed Conway is the author.
Okay. We're going to be testing you guys on that book next year, so make sure you read it. I'm so glad you brought up supply chains, because I think the pandemic perhaps changed the way chief executives and the people who report to them think about supply chains. Is that the case for you? How has your thinking changed on the supply chains?
Well, the whole world has learned a lot. It's interesting, though. Asia have always had mental mindset of having long-term supply chains in place. That was how we developed our business with Japan, South Korea, and also China. Whereas the West have always said, well, we rely on the market, which is an amazing strategy until it's not. And that was what we learned during COVID.
Sorry. So the reason I was so excited to speak to you is because you really have an understanding of what's happening with the global economy, your company, that is. You're here in Davos this year. How does the global economic backdrop different this year than in years past?
Thank you. Well, we see a part of it. We see the physical moves, and what is very clear is that China is still growing quite significantly. They might have some challenges on property, but their manufacturing base is growing. We can see how the flow of materials going into China. So China is growing well. The US is growing well. Europe is struggling, and the global south have certainly certain areas are growing very strongly. So we are facing, we can read about the world is in a horrible spot, and it is horrible. We have wars and things like that. But net, the world is growing.
So one of the big stories I thought of 24 was kind of a slowdown in China's economy. But you sound like you're saying perhaps they're not growing as quickly as they were before, but their manufacturing base is thriving.
But given the size of the economy, if you grow by 5%, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's many decades ago that Europe has had such growth.
We've gone so long without mentioning Trump, and I think we've reached the point where we have to bring up Trump, just because I'm curious what tariffs, if they are applied as widely and aggressively as President-elect Trump, soon to be President Trump later today, says. Does that have an impact on Rio Tinto, and if so, how?
For sure. I don't speculate too much on the things. I mean, we in Rio Tinto, we need to understand politics, but we don't have a view on politics in that regard, because ultimately democracies select their leaders, and we work with the elected governments in different countries. Last time President Trump was in office, it actually worked out quite well for us in that regard, and decent agreements was made in place between Canada and the US, and because the US industry relies upon our aluminium from Canada, etc. So I think common sense will prevail.
I am going to push you here a little bit, because you mentioned that deal between the US and Canada and Mexico that happened under Trump 1.0. But here we are, and it seems like that deal has fallen apart because Trump is threatening tariffs again on Canada and Mexico. So how can you trust any deal that he puts in place will actually stick around?
Well, as far as I know, he's only president from tomorrow, and he has been president for 4 years, and we progressed a lot of business agenda in his first stint as president. So I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay. So the deal that he put in place, then you feel like that has benefited you as a business, and
Well, I think it's been for the benefit of the US and Canada.
how's business in Greenland?
I happen to be a Danish citizen, yes. But you know, I mean, we have actually been exploring on Greenland for 15 years, and there are some minerals. But we really couldn't see it being very economic because I happen to have been to Greenland, and there's not a single road between two cities on that place. Everything has to be airborne. The logistic cost up there is enormous. So be my guest for some of my competitors who wants to go to Greenland.
You mentioned something about having 55 bilateral meetings. Was that last year? How many do you have this year?
Probably less. I was a bit tired, I have to admit.
Okay, so the fact that you have fewer meetings, that shouldn't be taken as some sort of economic indicator. You want to chill a little bit more this year, it sounds like.
I would like to get out on cross-country skis 1 or 2 mornings.
Okay. That's better to do not before Davos, but after the World Economic Forum ends?
Probably 2, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining Axios. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Stick around for a word from our sponsor.